there was an incident in the Palace where you and Ben Wallace, Hall of Famer, unbelievable defensive player, great rebounder, got into it, where he shoved you and then, benches kind of cleared, no punches was thrown. You go and you lay on the score table. A fan throws something at you, it hits you, can of beer or something, whatever it was, and you lose it. And you run right up in the stands and all hell breaks loose. Tell us about that time and how that kind of changed you, or how did you react to looking back at it now?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Looking back at it
looking
now.
back at it.
What do you think about that now after it was all said and done?
Well, I mean, there's so many different things at that time. It was a basketball, individual, legacy. It was team, accolades, brands, deals, everything, personal, emotions, right? So there was so many things that was affected, at that time, from a basketball standpoint. I just won Defensive Player of the Year. So that was going to be probably another one. Then Ben wins it again. And at that time, you had all these great defenders from Kobe, RP, our brother Kobe, Tim, Garnett. But the only ones they were talking about was me and Ben winning Defensive Player of the Year. Right. And then you had some other great defenders who wasn't as good offensively, but like Bruce Bowen. He was also in the mix for that because he was a great defender. So, Ben wins it the year I led the league in flagrants and suspensions, flagrants and techs. So then he wins it that year. I thought that was one of the reasons I didn't win it. Then the next year I win it. So that's 1-1, right? 1-1. So now we coming back. I'm like, okay, I'm going to win it this year. And meanwhile, I finished 6th in MVP voting. Jermaine was 2nd. Kevin Garnett got it. Then I was number 6, averaging 18 points. So I come back averaging more. So this is a year where I'm thinking this is going to be a first team All NBA, not a third team, and all this stuff. So that was on my mind. I worked so hard that summer. I was working with Larry Bird every day and Chuck Person every day. So right then and there at that point, I'm like, when the brawl happened, I asked Steve Jackson, I said, yo, do you think we really going to get in trouble for this?
I remember hearing him say that on Up in Smoke podcast with him and Matt Barnes, where he said that, when that broke out, you in the locker room and you asked him that question.
Yeah. Because I'm not used to getting in trouble for somebody hitting me,
Right.
I'm used to somebody being like, hey, he hit you? Oh, good job. You hit him back. And I was thinking about all this stuff, and I'm like, man, I worked so hard for this moment. So then that happened. Then the championship. Now, meanwhile, the year before that, like I was telling you earlier, tied up, Game 6, Detroit, Indiana, to go to the finals. Detroit beat the Lakers in the finals, right? But we was the best team in the league at that point in time. We had 61 wins. And then I elbowed Richard Hamilton in the face, even though he elbowed me in my nuts. And the ref didn't see it. And it's
always
on tape.
Catch the second guy. Always catch the second
it's
guy.
on tape,
Right.
But then I'm like, all right, boom, I elbow him in the face. And they call a tech on me, 2 free throws. They score, they go up 4. There's about 2 minutes left, and they win by 4 to go to the finals and win. So now we back the next year. I'm like, okay, you cannot be making these mistakes. I got a quick trigger, right? So I'm like, you need to chill.
Right.
So when the brawl happens, I go on the scorer's table. I'm like, just chill, no matter what, at all costs. So I wasn't really prepared for anything because my teammates knew I had a quick trigger.
Right, of course.
It did not matter. Ben Wallace or nobody. I jumped on Shaq's back before. I'm not worried about Ben Wallace. Shaq could have choked me out.
Right.
I'm not worried about Ben Wallace.
Right.
But in that time, I'm like, I just can't get in no more trouble.
Right.
I already lost maybe $500,000 in suspensions and texts and all this already.
Right.
So then when that happened, then the next day, actually, every deal I had was gone. The next day. So I'm like, I had my own shoe, LA Gear. I had 2 TNT commercials, 1 ESPN commercial. I had a couple of my other own brands. Carl's Jr.'s deal about to happen. And I remember the next day, like, gone.
Lost all of it.
Then they take the whole check.
Yeah.
Was not ready for that.
Yeah.
Right? Boom, that's gone. Right? So I'm saying, you know what? So I'm like, okay, just let me play. Keep the money. I just want to play. I just want to win the title. I worked so hard.
Right.
I care more about my stats and winning the title than the money.
Right.
At this point.
Right.
So I asked my agent, can you please tell them to keep the money. I don't even, like, that's a big punishment. Like, I don't need to get double punishment. Let me play, please. And I remember getting a call from MJ. MJ was the only one that called me. MJ called me and was like, and it's the second time MJ called me. I don't got a relationship with MJ. But he was like, hey, keep your head up. Keep your head up. He said, I think you might have a shot to get back. He said, just keep your head up. Now, meanwhile, previous summers, me and MJ used to have wars in the gym.
Right.
That people never saw.
Right.
It's crazy.
Well, obviously, that meant he respected you so much, you know, for MJ to call you.
Yeah, he's the only one.
That's love.
Yeah, and not to say, you know, but he did call, and he was idolized, like, as a kid.
Yeah.
Right? I idolized MJ, but I remember that time. So I thought I had a chance to get back. You know, MJ's like, he spoke to Stern, you know, but what happened was the next day I started promoting my R&B album. It wasn't a rap album. It was an R&B album that I produced because they took my check.
Right.
I had this album coming out on November 23rd. I got suspended on November 19th.
Oh, wow.
So I'm like, they said they're not paying me. So I'm like, oh, this is crazy. So I really got to promote this album, right? So
I got to make some money now.
Yeah, what you want me to do? You know what I'm saying? This is my first year signing my contract.
Right.
So I go on NBC and I'm promoting my album. Like, yo, and then Matt Lauer, well, I don't know if it's his fault, but NBC said, hey, we want to bring you on and, you know, talk about what you want to talk about. I said, okay. I'm not coming on the show to talk about the brawl because I'm in trouble right now. I need to sell this album, though.
Right.
I get on the show, and he started badmouthing me, talking about, man, this was a black eye, man. I'm like, you don't even know what happened. Like, look at the tape.
Right.
I didn't start this.
Right.
So I'm arguing with this guy, and I'm promoting the album, now I look crazy on television.
So in other words, they lied to you, basically.
Yeah,
I mean,
these guys tell me.
Normally they're gonna talk to you about what they're going to ask you and talk about on the show. And they basically kind of turned it the other way and started talking about the Malice at the Palace.
But then that was cool, but he had such an attitude.
Oh, okay.
You know, I'm like, okay. I'm your guest on your show. So no matter what I did, I'm on your show. Well, you can't be mad at me.
Right.
You got to make me feel comfortable.
Right.
Right? So it was real awkward.
Right.
And then I was supposed to do Oprah, but then, you know, I didn't do that show because I was just like, I didn't know what the hell was going on. Right. So I just, you know, I said, I'm not going to go on that. And then I didn't get a chance to come back that season, you know. And then, you know, it was like so many different things and family and kids is seeing it, you know, so what happened. I just had to eat it.
Yeah.
And I said, you know what, just take this on the chin and move on.